let's take a look at Perek Chavav. I'm going to go back to, what do you call it, afterwards. We'll go back to, afterwards, we're going to come back to the beginning of Bechukotai if we have time at the end of the week. Let's start with Perek Chavav, where we were yesterday. Chavav Daled, page 708. Okay. So the Torah says like this, very, very, very interesting. Now we're going to get into a little, you're going to have to use your heads a little bit. A little bit more. So the Torah says like this. First, the Torah says, if you follow, we spoke yesterday about Amelus, about Torah, if you learn Torah properly. And then it says there will be peace in the land. And then in Pasuk Vav, pick it up for the Pasuk Vav, fifth line on page 708. Torah says, "V'nasati shalom ba'aretz," there will be peace in the land. "U'shechavtem ve'ein macharid." You'll lie down and nobody will frighten you at night. There's nothing like when you go to sleep at night, you want to be able to sleep without any sort of fear. There are people who have panic attacks. People who have panic attacks. I had a period I went through panic attacks. I think my wife was out with my credit card. I was having panic attack. All of a sudden for no reason, you just get up in the middle of the night and you're just panicked. There's medication for it. There's what do you call it? So people, it's a blessing. I remember I once got into a cab and the cab driver was complaining about his son. He was having trouble with it. He said, I don't sleep and I never get that sweet sleep, he called it. It's never a sweet sleep. It's a bracha to be able to sleep properly and healthy. Sleep is necessary. Sleep is something that many people actually practice and perfect. So to be able to sleep with peace, and there's no noise outside, and there's no shooting, and there's no we live in what do you call it, in Neve Yaakov, so right up the hill. It's not that close, but there's an Arab village next to us, and every Friday night, they have their chasnas over there. The weddings, they're shooting. Last Friday night we heard machine gun fire. I know it must have been a big wedding. They shoot off guns. They literally shoot off guns. They had one incident in Israel where the brother of the chassan got killed at the wedding. They shot off guns and they play with guns. That's what happens. Brother of the chassan got shot at the wedding. And sometimes it's late Friday night. We're having the Suda and we're finishing the Suda. You're ready to go to sleep, and all of a sudden you hear this shooting and fireworks and the whole thing. So here it says that you'll be able to sleep at night. There'll be no wild animals. No sword will pass through your land. Now take a look at what Rashi says here. It's in the right-hand column. Sorry, in the right column, not the right-hand column. Right, it's right. You don't have to do the right hand. You have a right foot also. In the right foot column, 2 lines from the bottom. V'cherev lo savor be'artzachem, says Rashi, ain't tzarich lomar shelo yavo le'milchama. There's no need to say that people won't come to fight you. That obviously, there's no bracha if your enemies are going to come to fight you. Ela afilu lavor derech artzachem medina lemenina. There will be no armies that will cross through your land to go fight somewhere else. Now, why does the Torah mention that as a bracha? Why is it a bracha to have no armies crossing? They're not bothering us. They're going to fight somebody else. Who's fighting now? You get the Jordanians want to go fight the Egyptians, so they happen to go crossing through our land. What do I care? Go ahead. Just go right through. The Torah says even that won't happen. Why not?
Because whenever that happens, usually they're conquesting and pillaging.
Correct. Swords, even a good sword is not a good sword. The only good sword is no sword. If an army comes across, that's what happened. That's what happened in the Crusades. The Crusaders were going to fight the Crusaders were going to fight the Yishmaelim in Jerusalem, right? They were on their way. But as you cross through Jewish villages, you may as well wipe out a few Jews while you're at it. Swords are never a good thing for the Jews. When the whites in the Russia, when they had the revolution, the Reds versus the Whites, right? And Jews are caught in the middle. It's just not a good thing. The Torah says no sword will pass through your land. Okay, now focus really well on what happens now. Okay, you will chase your enemies. They will fall before you by the sword. Now pay attention very carefully to Pasuk Ches. V'rodfu bikem chamisha mea, 5 of you will chase 100. Umeya mikem, 100 of you, rivava yirdofu, will chase 10,000. V'naflu oivechem liftechem b'charv, and again it repeats, your enemies will fall before you by the sword. Now, right off the bat, you should be bothered by something in this pasuk. 5 of you will chase 100, and 100 of you will chase 10,000. Something should bother you.
That's a big number.
The ratio. The math doesn't work out. 5 chase 100. So what should the ratio be? 100 will chase 2,000. 100 chase 2,000. Then 100 chase 10,000. So Rashi right here on the spot says, well, we see here in the Torah that you can't compare when few people do the mitzvahs to when many do the mitzvahs. When many are doing the mitzvahs, so our strength grows exponentially, not proportionally. Davening alone and davening in a minyan, it doesn't mean that it's not 10 people who've davened. It's not one person times 10. It's a brand new potency. It's not one person times 10. It's one person versus 10. It's one person with a pistol versus 10 Kalashnikovs. And then it's 10 Kalashnikovs versus 100 bazookas. You understand? The strength of each individual grows exponentially as he becomes part of the community. By the way, that's an important point. You know why that is when you daven? Why is it so important to daven with a minyan? There's a practical reason, and there's a more, for lack of a better word, a spiritual reason, right? What's the practical reason daven in a minyan?
There are certain kavanot that you might miss that people who have them transfer them to you.
That's already getting onto a spiritual level. That's already, you're right. That's getting onto a spiritual level. But what's the most basic practical level?
When I'm davening by myself at home, I'm davening in shorts and a t-shirt.
There you go. You're davening, when you daven at home, you become one of these multi-talented people who's able to daven and read the newspaper at the same time. It's an amazing thing. You're able to daven and check your check your iPod at the same time. When you're davening in your shorts or in your pajamas, depending on what the situation is. When you're in shul, you're on your best behavior, and you put on a little bit of a show for the guy next to you, so he should see how spiritual you are, even though the night before the two of you were in a bar together. But you want to show what a good Jew you are. And what ends up happening is because you're putting on the show, it affects you, and you daven with more kavanah. And you're in an environment, you're dressed like a normal person as opposed to a Tarzan, and you daven with kavanah, and you also catch some Yamenia Heshmei Rabbas, and you answer Kaddish, and there's an Aron Kodesh there, and the environment affects you because the environment is everything, and you're in a very, very Torah-dic environment, you're very, very Kedusha environment, so it affects your tefillah, number one. Number two, there's a deeper reason. That's the practical reason. That's why men need it and women don't. That's why men need it and women don't. Why don't women need to daven in minyan? Watch women daven, well, don't watch it, but pay attention to how women daven when they're on their own. Women daven with a lot of kavanah on their own, right? Even from the earliest age. I have boys and I have sons and I have daughters. You know, watch little girls daven. From the earliest age, they're davening. You know, like they stand in the corner, they daven, they say every word. They're not goofing around. They're in tune to it. They don't need the minyan. They're in tune to it. They daven. You know, I have one daughter just said everything on the page. You know, she just started from the beginning of the page, and then it says, you know, sometimes it says we skip this on Erev Pesach. She davens that too. You know, Pesach. You know, with intense kavanah. Watch two little boys davening. A little boy davening. You know, and they finish. You know, put two boys together. You know, it doesn't take long for. In general, you put two boys together. At a certain point, they're gonna start hitting, right? When they daven, it's even sooner. You know, boom, 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 boom. You know, then the boys looking around. Okay, nobody's watching me. I'm done. You know, the phantom davener. You know, so men are only little boys in a bigger body. That's all men are. I heard this from Rabbi Tats once. There's a statement in the Zohar that says a man is a little boy always. Because a girl is a woman from the earliest age, and a man is a little boy always. Interesting? Yeah, because we always say men always like playing with gadgets, toys. Right? I still, to this day, every time I pass a guy in America told me he works on a construction site. He actually operates one of those things, you know, one of the cranes or something. Oh, wow. I just like, can you hook me up? You know, get me in one of them for 20 minutes. That's all I want. You know, one of those cats. You know, just dig up the earth over there. So I'm still looking for the same toys. What toy does a girl play with when she's little? Plays with a doll. She's just practicing to be a mother. When she gets older, she actually plays with the little kid, with the baby himself. The men, it's always a toy. It's always a toy. Men it's a very important insight. That's why men need a stabling force and women don't. So a woman davens, she's more naturally attuned. The men need the environment. We need all the help we can get. And therefore, it's not a joke. It's not a joke. That's why we daven. Now, there's a deeper reason. The deeper reason is because when you daven by yourself, this is not my idea. This is what's explained. The basic explanation. When you daven by yourself, the malachim, what we translate as angels, the angels take our tefillah up to Hashem's throne. When you're davening by yourself, they inspect it well. When you're davening by yourself, they inspect it well. So they take the tefillah all the way up and they give it an inspection. Well, I don't like that. There was the kavanah there could have been better, and skip that one. By the time they narrow it down, there isn't much left. When you're davening with a minyan, they bring up the whole box. So they just kind of give a glance. Basically looks okay. You go up with the merit of the community. You actually go up with the merit of the community. And therefore, when you go up with the merit of the community, so your tefillah in the tzibur, there's more room, there's more leeway, because you are actually part of the tzibur. The tzibur carries up. So again, what you say is, that somebody else's kavanah could affect yours. I don't know. I've never seen it put quite that way. It could be. I've never seen it put quite that way. But certainly their presence affects yours. Just their very presence affects yours. So the community, you grow exponentially, okay? Now, having said that, you should have a problem with this. So one of you asked, what the ratio does not obey, the ratio does not obey. So the commentator Rashi says that the most basic answer is, Gabi's correct, and Rashi says that it has to do with the merit. The more you are, the more powerful you become exponentially. But I saw one of the commentators explains there is a very, very, in the pasuk, the ratio will work. There's a way to read the pasuk where the ratio does work. Now watch how he reads the pasuk. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Reads the pasuk like this: Viradfu mikem chamisha mea. 5 of you will chase 100. Umeya mikem, and 100 of you, groups of 5. Revava Yirdofa will chase 10,000. Then the ratio works perfectly. 100 groups of 5 is 500. 500 will chase 10,000. That's the ratio of 5 to 5. If 5 chase 100, 500 chase 10,000. So if you understand the mikem is referring back to what we were originally speaking about, which is a group of 5. And 100 of your groups of 5, then the ratio works very well. Then the ratio works very nicely. Okay? Now, the next problem you have here is that it says, and your enemies will fall before you by the sword. Now that you'll notice is mentioned twice. The Torah says twice your enemy. It says it in Pasuk Zayin, v'naflu lifnechem lecharev. And then it says again in Pasuk Ches, v'naflu oivechem lifnechem lecharev. Your enemies will fall before you by the sword. Now, what is emphasized here, this idea, your enemies will fall before you by the sword? So let's go, yeah.
Could it be that it's like not exactly the same sword, and one could be more like physical, one could be more like spiritual?
Okay, you're almost on the right track. You're almost on the right. You're moving towards the right track. What's that? That for sure. They're gonna get in such a panic. They're gonna get panic. They're gonna fall. They're gonna fall on their own swords, right? They'll fight each other, and their panic as they run away. They won't know what's happening. You just start. That's for sure. So one of the commentaries points out like this. You know the famous story with David HaMelech. David goes out. He comes to visit his brothers at the battlefront, and he sees the Jewish people are in a panic because this giant Goliath, what we call Goliath, who the Nach says is 6 amos and a zeres. Now, if an amma is at a minimum a 1.5 feet, so he's 6 ammas, a 1.5 feet, that means he's 9 feet tall. 9 feet tall, and what do you call it? He's first team all-star, and 9 feet tall, and he's armed to the teeth. And he comes out with his armor, and he's intimidating the Jewish people. He comes out and he says, "Send out your best warrior to fight me." If I defeat him, you'll be our slaves. If he defeats me, the Philistines will be your slaves. And Shaul in his, what's that?
Jews have God on their side.
Yeah, well, Jews have God on their side, but he's got armor. And, and the Jews are there for 40 days being intimidated. And then David HaMelech comes out. He's the shepherd. He comes out and he says, hey, what's going on? And they say, well, take a look. And he hears Goliath is blaspheming and he's intimidating. And David says, hey, what's up with that? He says, I'll fight him. And the king says anybody who fights him is going to be rewarded, that he'll marry the king's daughter. And David goes and he tries putting on the armor. He puts on King Saul's armor. It doesn't fit him. So he takes off the armor. He takes 5 smooth stones and he goes out. And Goliath says to him, you're going to fight me like a dog? So David says, I'm coming in the name of Hashem. And he takes the what do you call it? And he shoots and he hits Goliath in the only unprotected place, which is right over here. And the stone actually embeds itself in his forehead. And Saul and Goliath pitches forward. David cuts off his head, and everybody goes home happy. Okay, that's it. They live happy, except for the Philistines. Yeah, they had a bad day. They were even heard. One of them was overheard saying to the other, "Man, I hate when that happens." And the Philistines are having a bad day. Okay, now, so the Chazal point out, the Gemara points out, if a guy gets hit in the forehead hard enough to kill him with a stone, the stone actually embeds itself. A guy's standing up straight, and he's hit in the head with a stone so hard that it actually kills him. The stone killed him, not David cutting out. David cut off his head, he was already dead. The stone hit him, embedded itself in his skull, in his forehead, and killed him. Now, which way would you expect him to fall? Backwards. He either collapse on the spot or fall backwards. Yet Goliath pitches forward. So the Gemara says, and why did he fall forward? It's a miracle. That he fell forward is a miracle. Why? To save David HaMelech 12 steps. Because David HaMelech, if he would have had to walk over, he would have had to walk over 12 steps to cut off his head if he would have fallen backwards. So he'd have to take 12 steps over to take the sword and cut off his head. This way he fell conveniently right at his feet, and he was able to pull out the sword and cut off his head. Okay?
Did we learn that the stone didn't kill him? Did the stone kill him and not the cutting off?
The Nach, it says in the Nach, he fell, the stone kills him. Okay? Now, that being the case, what's that?
Why cut off his head if he's already dead?
That's always what you do in war. You cut off the head. That's always like kind of the finishing. That's kind of the finishing. Yeah, that's the finishing. That's the you always bring the head. Bring that. Okay, again, gentlemen, let's stick with the point. That's it. You want to read it up in the Nach. You read up the whole story. I'm not bringing it up for that right now. I'm bringing it up for a different reason. So Shaul pitches forward. Okay, Goliath pitches forward. David Kelso said, the Nach says, the Gemara says he fell forward to save David HaMelech 12 steps. Which is itself a little bit difficult to understand. David HaMelech would have been happy to go walk 12 steps, chop off his head. I mean, you just killed, you're the national hero, you're about to marry the king's daughter, you're going to be rich, you got everything. I got no problem. So you win the NCAA title, they got to bring the basket to the coach. The coach is more than happy to walk over to the basket and cut down the neck. That's fine. You don't have to bring the basket to me. He dances over on everybody's shoulders. Why do you need it? So the explanation is that David HaMelech has his own little miracle. The miracle of killing Saul is a redemption for the entire Jewish people. And this is just to show David HaMelech has a certain level that Hashem favors him because, and David HaMelech gets his own little miracle. They compare it to a father who loses his wallet. The father loses his wallet. And everybody in the house goes looking for the wallet. He's got $10,000 cash in the wallet. Everybody in the house is looking for the wallet. One of the kids finds the wallet. So as soon as he finds the wallet, everybody starts dancing and celebrating. Right? Everybody's dancing and celebrating. Then the father walks over to the kid who found it and gives him a hug and a kiss. Because after all, you're the one, that's for you. That's your own personal one. So the celebration for the Jewish people is that Goliath is killed. But now that itself is a miracle for the entire Jewish people. But David HaMelech needs his own little kiss. His own little kiss as Goliath pitches forward instead of pitching back. Okay? Now, one second. Well, hold all questions, Kaplan. So what's the sign that it's supernatural? What's the sign, as you said earlier, that God is involved in this? The fact that he falls forward. Look at the words very carefully, gentlemen. V'naflu oivechem lifnechem lechorev. Your enemies will fall before you. Before you could also be understood as they will fall forward by your sword. I mean, if you go and you stab someone with a sword, which way would you expect them to fall? I expect them to fall backwards. You stab a guy with a sword, I expect them to either collapse or fall backwards. The last thing I'd expect is that he should fall forward. That's the sign that it's going to be supernatural. That's a sign that it's going to be beyond nature, because you're going to stab them and they're going to fall forward. That means that you think you're doing it. It's only because you've had the siyata d'shmaya that Kosh Baruch has helped you. That's why they're falling. That's why you're being successful. That's what the Torah is emphasizing. That's why it says lifnechem. Okay? Then the Torah says, Ufanisi aleichem, I will turn to you. And Rashi says, now I don't know what this means, but this is certainly encouraging. And so let's see it because it's very encouraging. Ufanisi aleichem. Take a look at Rashi and Pasuk Tes. I'm not sure exactly what this means, but it's certainly good news. It's the left column, 5 lines from the top. Ufanisi aleichem, says Rashi, to 5th line from the top, left column. Epone mikol asokai, I will turn from all of my other involvements, l'shalem scharchem, to pay your reward. Hashem says, whatever else, I'm going to drop everything else I'm doing just to reward you. Now, the reason I say I don't know exactly what that means is because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, isn't involved. It's not like he can't do 2 things at once. It's a way of emphasizing for a human being. There's a principle in Torah. There's a principle in Torah called l'saber es ha'ozen. L'saber es ha'ozen means to make it palatable for us to understand. That's why it uses in Egypt. It was the hand of God, the finger of God, etzba Elokim, Yad Hashem. God gets angry. All of these do not apply to God on a literal level.
What's the phrase? How to say it?
It says God gets angry, God's hand, l'saber es ha'ozen, to make it palatable to the ear to be able to understand what's being said. So the idea is that as human beings, the only way we can even begin to relate to it is by using some sort of metaphor for how God is acting. So I say, well, God got angry. God doesn't get angry because God doesn't have bad days or good days. No human emotion could be used to describe God. But when we see certain results down here, we would describe it in human terms as whoever's doing it must be angry. So from a human vantage point, we would describe it as, well, God is angry at the Jewish people. But that's really a description of the action, not a description of God. Because God doesn't get angry. God created the concept of anger. God created the concept of hands. He can't be limited by it. Therefore, since the Torah wants to give us that's why it says over here, God's going to reward us. You know what kind of reward it's going to be? From a human point of view, it's as if the boss stopped all his business, all of his investing, and he just focused on how he could reward you. That'd be pretty good. Imagine the boss always says, nobody bother me today. I'm trying to figure out how I can reward my best worker. Nobody bother me. I'm going to be in the office today, figure out what's the best reward for my worker. That's what the Torah is trying to, metaphorically, that's what the Torah is trying to convey that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does towards the Jewish people when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is happy with us. Okay, now, and again, the Torah talks about all the produce and everything else. Then we get on to page 710. Now comes what's called the tochacha. The tochacha is the part of shul. It's the part of shul where the Baal Koreh drops his voice. First of all, they don't give the aliyah to anybody else. They always give the aliyah to the Baal Koreh because he's up by the Torah. They never call somebody up for the curse. The tochacha. The tochacha means the rebuke. And they never give the aliyah. In the shuls, the custom is that you don't call somebody up for it. They go, Yamod, Ruvain ben Shimon, for the curse. You give it, you let the Baal Koreh do it because he's already there and he reads the tochacha. And then he reads it quickly and in a lower voice because it's symbolically that the Jewish people shouldn't be affected by the curse. That's the what do you call it? That's the idea of the tochacha. Number one. Number two. There's actually a guy walked into a shul on Shabbos. They were reading Bechukotai, and the guy walks into the shul and he says to the gabbai, he wants to buy the tochacha. You know how they sell aliyah sometimes? This guy wants to buy the rebuke. He wants the aliyah to come up for the rebuke, for the curse. So the gabbai says, we don't do that in our shul. We don't sell the thing. And the guy said, I know, I want to. So the gabbai doesn't know what to do. He goes to the Rav of the shul. So the Rav of the shul says, all right, just tell him to just name an exorbitant price. If just tell him you want $500 for it, he's not going to buy it. He goes to the guy and says, I'll give it to you, I'll sell it to you. Okay, the shul will sell it to you for $500. He says, okay, I'll take it for $500. So the guy goes like, "Vey." He goes back to the rabbi. He says, "Now what?" The rabbi says, "Well, if that's what he's going to pay, give it to him. It's only a custom anyway. It's only a minhag not to call people. If he wants to buy it, so give him the tocha." Okay, guy gets the tocha. About 3 weeks later, he gets word that his uncle in America died and left him a boodle. Left him a pile of money. Left him a whole factory, a whole business. Right? And he's running the business from here, and a few months later, he has to move to America to run the business because the guy's absolutely wealthy. So somebody went to the Stiplers at Theyll. They said to the Stipler, "How could that possibly be the guy? The guy got the look what happened to me. He made all that money after buying the Stipler started laughing. He said, "Well, I knew he'd get cursed. I didn't know he'd be such a big curse." Right? So the truth of the matter is, doesn't really answer the question, though. Yes, everybody's thinking, curse me, you know. But so it is a custom. It is a custom at the tocha that you call up the Balkori who is up at the Torah already. You don't call up somebody else. Now look what the Torah says. V'im lo sishvuli, if you don't obey me, v'lo sasu is kol habitzos eileh, you do not fulfill all of these mitzvahs. V'im bechukotai timoasu, if you loathe my statutes. And we'll see what Rashi says about this in a moment. V'im es mishpatai tigal nafshechem, and you, my ordinances, you, if you consider my decrees, losamim, your being rejects my ordinances. That's a heck of a translation. Levilti asoses kol mitzvosai lafrachem es busy. You don't want to do my mitzvahs. So take a look at Rashi. Rashi and Pasuk Tesvav. So Rashi says like this. It's in the right column, and it's about a little more than halfway down the right column. About 1937 of the way down. V'im bechukotai timoasu. Everybody, if you find it, please show the person next to you. Make sure the person next to you finds it. V'im bechukotai timoasu. If you loathe my statutes, says Rashi. What does that mean to loathe the statutes? Mo'es ba'acherim ha'osim. You loathe others who do it. You loathe others who fulfill the mitzvahs. This is unfortunately a very common, and we're living through it today. We live through it today. Why is there so much objection to the Torah world if you know anything about Israeli politics? Where is the objection coming from? Where they want to cut yeshiva funding and they want to cut the from this and the from that and everything else. What's underlying? You know, where's it really coming from?
Jealousy.
It's coming from a rejection. Jealousy comes in later. You're not far off. It's not the jealousy here. Here, what you see, the problem, why is it when I was in high school, almost every non-Jewish secular teacher, went to Yeshiva High School, almost every non-Jewish secular teacher that we had wore a yarmulke when they came into the school. Almost every Jewish, non-religious secular teacher that we had did not wear a yarmulke. Interesting phenomenon, isn't it? Why?
No respect for the good.
Shame.
What's the shame?
That they're not living by the commandments, so they have to reject it.
know.
Yes,
Convince themselves
that
they're not
correct.
transgressing.
Correct. The goy comes in, and you know, big deal. Put on me. They want me to put on this cap. I'll put on out of respect. I'll put on the cap because we all know it's got nothing to do with me, and I'll put it on out of respect. When the Jewish teacher comes in, and then there's a feeling like, 1 second, you know, if I'm wearing it now, then maybe I should be wearing it all the time, and he knows he should be. And therefore, the only way to fight it, the only thing you're left to do is to fight it. No, I don't wear yarmulkes. No, I don't eat kosher. No, I don't. What do you mean you don't? But it's available. No, in principle, I don't eat kosher. I've seen Jews do that. In principle, I don't eat kosher food. It's available. No, in principle, because I want to show I'm a man of principle. The religion has nothing to do with me, right? So when you see other people who are doing the mitzvah, they represent your conscience. That's why there's so much animosity towards the religious Jews. They think that we're walking around with black hats on to put it in their face. I'm not even thinking about you, buddy. I'm not concerned with you. I got to live my own life. Yeah, but no, it's what you're. Remember what was Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart? Remember the telltale heart, that heartbeat when he's guilty? So that one I read in high school. That was real short. You know, I didn't. You know, that was much shorter than Crime and Punishment. So that I read. The telltale heart. Right? The telltale heart. Be sure it's your own heart. It's your own heart. When you see me, it's your heart that's making you guilty. Therefore, you're of no choice but to push it away. That's what Rashi says. Moes ba'acherim ha'osim. Number one, you loathe those who do the mitzvahs. Now let's continue in Rashi here. And then it says, Mishpatai tig al nafshechem, sone hachachamim. You hate the wise men. You hate the Talmidei Chachamim. Levilti lasos, and then you even go further. Monea es acherim me'asos. You stop, you try to prevent other people from doing it. Not only you don't want to do it, but your principle carries you to the bar. I don't want anybody to do it. Right? That is the wickedness. That's the evil the Torah is talking about. Now, take a look at the next one, because the next one I think speaks to all of us. So, Afani says Oslachem, I will do the following. Back in the Chumash. Afani says Oslachem, V'hifkarati aleichem behala. I will visit you with behala. Now, how does the ArtScroll translate? Because there's another translation. How does the ArtScroll translate it? I will assign upon you panic. Esa shachefes, esa kadachas, different various illnesses. Mechalos einayim v'divos nafesh, which cause this depression because you're waiting for people to be cured and they never get cured. Sounds very much like various diseases we have nowadays. Uzratem larik zarachem, you will sow your crops, v'chlu oivechem, your enemies will consume them. So this thing called behala, is what's called panic. We call it panic. That's how the ArtScroll translates it. There's another what's the word? What's the opposite of being calm? I guess being panicky? Agitated, anxious, that's the word I'm looking for. There's certain anxiety, that's right, where we suffer nowadays from anxiety. There's a lot of anxiety, panic attacks, anxiety. They're all very 20th century and 21st century ailments. You know, back in the Russian shtetl, there was no anxiety because they were busy trying to find shoes for their children, and they were being chased by Cossacks, so they didn't have time to be depressed and have anxiety. Now, that's once you got a good job and you're making a good salary, then you can worry about finding something to mess you over. So then you got anxiety and low self-esteem. Nobody in Russia, nobody in Fiddler on the Roof ever had low self-esteem. They're busy being chased by Cossacks. So the Torah says over here, you're going to get this anxiety. Behola's anxiety. You're just anxious. You're always anxious. So I saw one of the commentaries says like this. First of all, in our day and age, it's ridiculous. I mean, in our day and age, it's gotten to the point of being ridiculous, but with modern technology. So one of the commentaries points out like this. How do you feel, and again, I'm not picking on anybody or person, I'm talking to myself. I only say you because I'd rather blame you than me. But how do we feel, like towards the end of Shabbos, for example. Towards the end of Shabbos, and it's you got Shalosh Shudas, and you go off to shul. How do you feel? Anxious. What are you anxious for? Yeah, either a cigarette or to go out and get some pizza or to go out and do other things. You know what? Come on, Shabbos, let's end already. I mean, you have one of these 3-day yontif things, right? Shabbos comes with 2 days yontif. Oh my goodness, the worst thing in the world. Absolutely the worst. I'd rather have Tisha B'Av than that. Absolutely the worst thing in the world. I understand what's bothering you. For 3 days, you get to eat and sleep, which is what you would be doing anyway. Right? So what's bothering you? Why? Because you got to spend a little time in shul? That's not what's bothering you. You just can't, because I can't shower. That's not what's bothering you, because I can't watch TV. That's not what. The answer is, because I have to do it. That's why people are complaining. Oh, yeah, another meal. Oh, yeah, another meal. Oh, yeah. Then Yontif ends, and they're off to the restaurant. They're oh, yeah, another meal. Oh, yeah, another meal. And then there they are. The first ones out of the house to order a pizza. I thought you were complaining about it, but yeah, but now it's my choice. You're sitting there eating delicious food for 3 days, eating delicious food and sleeping. That's what we live for. Now, all of a sudden, it's a drudgery. Why? So that attitude, you're in shul, can't wait for shul to end. You're at the rabbi's speech, can't wait for the speech to end. I hope it never begins. You're sitting there thinking to yourself, maybe the rabbi won't speak this week. You go to a shear, can't wait for the shear to end. All the things, can't wait for davening to end. That anxiety, we're so anxious, we haven't got patience to do the mitzvahs. Therefore, mida kedeged mida, HaKadosh Baruch Hu pays, you get what you deserve. The payback is you're going to be anxious in life. Can't wait. You know, you can't wait at the stoplight. You can't wait. I was in Flatbush just now. I was in Flatbush. So in Flatbush, they have these short half blocks. And every half block, all right, it's not fair. Every half block, there's a red light, right? No one walking even crosses their mind to stop. They don't even break stride when they get to these red lights. And I'm like holding a sign. I am not from Flatbush because I stop at every red light. And I got to the point where during the week I have to walk over to Landau's. So I carried a Tehillim with me because I've got time at every red light to say Tehillim because so it's not fair because they are short half blocks. But everybody's in a rush. Everybody, you're in a rush. You get to the airport, you find out there's a 20-minute delay on your plane. Oh, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Well, you know, we just don't want the wing to fall off at 35,000 feet. So we're just, all right, but but hurry up. Guy turns on a computer. Computer takes about 3 seconds longer than it's a dinosaur. I can't believe it. Yeah, you're in such a hurry. Your grandparents made a trip from America to Israel. If they did it once in their lifetime. Got on a boat, said goodbye to the family, and then they traveled for 6 weeks. We make the trip in 9.5 hours, and we haven't got patience. You got a microwave. Just finish the popcorn before the end of the commercial. You got to be microwaved, right? Has all of this made us more patient or less patient? I don't see that we were more patient. We're much less patient. They used to say, what's 300 feet long and eats potatoes? A line of people in Russia waiting to buy meat. When the Russians came to the Russians were very patient people, extremely patient. Why? Because they grew up in Russia. And in Russia, there was a rule. Somebody once said, a Russian guy told us, when you saw a line, you didn't know what it was for. You just get into the line. If you ever saw a line in Russia, under communist rule, you saw a line, get into line. Because that means something is being sold. Just get in line. And they were used to waiting. And you grew up, you're used to waiting. And a person who's not in that situation, we grow up, we got everything is quick. We're not more patient. To the contrary, we're more anxious. We've got more anxiety. That's because we haven't got patience to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's what one of the commentators says Behola is. Behola is that we now suffer the consequence of our own attitude. You haven't got patience for the rabbi's drasha and shul, good. So now you haven't got patience in your own life. You get into a car, and what were you expecting? You're in New York traffic every day. And every day you get into your car and you start cursing because there's traffic. I mean, what were you expecting? Everybody get off my highway? What were you know that's going to happen. Put a shear in your car, put on the air conditioning, chill out, do something productive while you're driving. There's a lot to do. No, I expect what do you call? I expect everything's going to be. What happened? What's that?
Check to see if the horn works.
Check to see if the yeah right. That's right. First thing you do in Brooklyn before you turn on the car is check to see if the horn works. All right, we're going. Here we go. That's the punishment for us. Okay. I heard a story. I'll tell you tomorrow. I'll tell you a funny story. I have to go.